We'll do a review in Likutei Sichos in Chelek 22, volume 22, Chelek of Beis. And this is the Sicha for the portion of Emor, the third Sicha for the portion of Emor. Now, in this Sicha, the Rebbe discusses the Parsha, which talks about the four species that we take on Sukkot, the lulav, the esrog, the hadassim, and the aravis. And the Rebbe says that all these description in the Torah for each of these species is precise, with the exception of the arava. The arava doesn't have to be, even though in the pasuk it says it's willows of the valley of the river, but it doesn't have to be, even if it's a dry land, as long as it's the same kind. And why is it that in the other simonim, the signs that determine the species over there, what the Torah says is very precise exactly, and over here it is just the general kind. The Rebbe explains this according to that sometimes you need certain things explained according to Chassidus, according to the inner meaning of things, that the Arava represents one who has not Torah and not mitzvahs, seemingly very little value. Over there, we don't need all the simonim, as the Rebbe will explain. But let's go step by step. Emor Gimel Aleph. In der Heintiker Sedre werden ausgerechnet the Dalet Minim. In today's Sedre, it is enumerated the four species. Was man darf nehmen bei Yom Harishon von Chag HaSukkos, that one needs to take on the first days of Sukkot. It says, "L'kachtem lachem b'yom harishon." And what does it say over there? Pri eitz hadar, a beautiful tree of the fruit. Kapes tamorim, the palms of the date tree. Vanaf eitz ovis, and the branches of a twisted. That's the hadassim, va'arvei nochal, and the willows that are on the nochal. All right, we'll see exactly each one of these four species, the way they're mentioned in the Torah. Gefitman in them advar pella. So we find something surprising in these requirement for this species that we use on the on Sukkot. By the Ershta that I mean, by the first three species, Zetman. Over there we see as the Tanai was Torah Gitev Zeh, that the condition that the Torah places on them, that which qualifies them as the species, is that Naili Ikuva in the mean. It's a condition that it needs to meet this criteria, Li Ikuva, even to hold back. If it doesn't meet that exact criteria as described in the Pasuk, then you didn't fulfill the mitzvah. In the min was menen bepoil, that is the species that you actually take. It has to meet the exact conditions, the criteria, the way the Torah describes it. And if you didn't do it, then it's not fulfilled the mitzvah. And the Rebbe goes through the first three. That's by the esrog and the lulav and the aravis, but not by the willow, not by the arvei nochal. So the Rebbe goes through first pre-eitz hodar, the pre-eitz hodar, it has to be a fruit of a tree of a hodar. The esrog was menemt, the esrog that one takes, muzayin a pre-eitz. First of all, it needs to be a fruit of a tree. And in this context, the pre-eitz, that it needs to be a complete fruit. The Rebbe brings down the qualifications in the Rebbe brings down about the Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. Unas muzayna hodor. The Torah said must be a hodor. It means a nice one. The esrog yovish puzzle. But if you had a dried out esrog, that would be unfit. So to actually take the kind that we use has to be actually a pre-eitz. Has to be a fruit. And it also has to be hodor. It has to be beautiful. A dried out esrog will be positive. Then when we talk about the lulav, it says kapis tamorim. The lulav muzayin kapos. The lulav must meet the criteria of kapos. Kapos means that they are folded and tied together, that you can't have the branches of the lulav separated and apart. It needs to be kapos. Olim haru'uyin la'ogdom ulekoifsom in hashedra. The leaves needs to be fit to tie them and to fold them up to the spine. They have to be together. Once the lulav dries up, it becomes like hard like a wood, and you can't pull them together. That would not qualify as a kosher lulav. If not, if it's not fit to tie them together, is as possible, then it would be unfit to be used for the lulav. So again, the qualification that the Torah says that it has to be kapos temorim, kafis temorim, that is a necessity, and it has to meet exactly that criteria. And also the second detail the Rebbe brings out, that it says that it has to be from temorim. The Rebbe will bring out, it's not enough just to be from a palm tree, but it has to be a palm tree that actually produces and used for dates. If you just take it from a tree that is not used for dates, and the Rebbe will bring down from the Ragachover that if you have a tree which is not there and you don't use the fruit, then it's not a kosher. It's not a kosher lulav. From a tree that is not used for tmorim. Then prat from tmorim, also as it relates to the detail of the dates, is masbir der rogat shover. So the rogat shover explains, as is nit genug a lulav, it's not sufficient to have a lulav from aboim was hot them shame from the min tmorim. It's not enough to have a lulav from a tree which has the name. It's called a palm tree, a tomor tree, a date tree. It must come from a palm tree that actually produces, that has these fruit, the fruit. It makes tomorrow. And he makes a distinction now between that, why we call it two of the species, the Gemara says are considered to be fruit-bearing trees, because one of the criteria of the tomorrow, it has to have fruits on it. That's when the species also of lulav is called coming from a fruit, a tree that is fruit-bearing. Their meat is a mevayer, was Chazal Zog, and this way he explains that our sages of blessed memory say, as daled minim shabelulav. So the Ragashover explains, it says that the four species of the lulav, and the Gemara says, as beis mem oisim peiros, two of them make fruit. So why is there only two that bear fruit? Also a myrtle tree, the branch of a myrtle produces fruit. Anovim, they call them grapes that are on the myrtles. So there seems to be three that produce fruit. So the Ragachover explains this. Norval by lulav is their din, because they explains by lulav the halacha is as the lulav muzayin funadekel sha'oiset tomorim, that the lulav must be from such a tree that actually produces the dates. If a person should plant a palm tree just for the wood, that would be not fit for a lulav. That makes it into a species that makes fruit. As opposed to a myrtle, was musnit kumen funa eitz was is oiser pedus. I mean, sometimes they do, but it doesn't have to come from a tree that is oiser pedus. Nevertheless, with regards to our thing, when the Torah says when the pasuk says kapos temorim, the temorim is liikuva. You have to have the lulav from a tree that produces the dates. And then the Third, and we'll talk about the myrtle, about the hadassim. Anas eitz ovis. It's a branch of a tree that is woven. Ovis. What is it? The ovis muzain ovis. The hodos muzain ovis. It has to be ovis, which means it has to be tloso bechat kino. The three leaves has to come from one kino, from one source. Unebnit is as possible, otherwise it would be unfit. So again, the description that the Torah prescribes what you need for the hadas is precise. It needs to be a anaf eitz ovis. But contrast that with the fourth species with arova. Mashenkin beim vierten min, as opposed to by the fourth species, by im is der posik mitzayin. Although here too the Torah references and the Torah signs on to this, arvei nochal. It says the willow of a nachal, of a where there is a stream, but is aber the din as shel bal kishera. If it's a dry, there's no stream, there's no water. The arovis of a bal is kosher. Sees from them min arova, as long as it's from the kind of the willow was vax gewöhnlich by a nachal, which usually grows by a stream. If it happens to be not by a stream, it's still kosher. It's kosher melachatchila. At the beginning, it's kosher. Even if the willow that he actually take is nit gewachsen by a nachal, they didn't grow by a stream. So here the requirement, the criteria for a willow, even though the Torah describes it as willows of the stream, but you don't need it to be davke by a stream. Even shalbal would be okay. But how come by the other three species, the criteria need to be meant exactly meet it, and that's the only way it's kosher? And over here we're saying just this type that usually grows at the stream is kosher also for arovas which do not grow by the stream. Darf man verstehen. So we need to understand farvos seinen arve nochal anders von the andere drei minim. How come the willows of the stream are different than the other three species? Was there simon was teure git of the arovas? Over here we're saying that the sign that the Torah gives what is qualifies as an arov, as a willow, is not a close. I mean, it's just the general mean that it's a kind that grows normally by a stream. But this is not describing that willow that you need to fulfill the actual mitzvah, because over here you don't need it to be an arova by the stream. Why is that? The Rebbe wants to say in his base that perhaps one can argue because it says arvei in the plural, doesn't say an arev nochal, and that's coming to include all kinds of arovas. So there's a special posik. In the posik itself, there's an indication, a limud for qualifying other arovas as well. However, the Rebbe doesn't really go along with that. The Rebbe puts in the Rambam. The arve is because you need two willows. That's the plural, but not for that. As let's look inside. Base. In Gemara is Franam the Omar. There is an opinion in the Gemara as der din that this halacha as oich anarove was is gewachsen by midbar or bahorim is kosher. That also a willow that grew in the desert or on the mountains is still kosher. Let it man up from them was state arve nochal. We learned this because it says arve in the plural, arve loshen rabim in a plural. Was his marba that would include oichan arove was vaxnit by a nachal. That includes also a willow that does not grow at the stream. So that's different. So the other ones that we don't have a special limud by the other three. Here we have by the Arova a special inclusion because it's a plural. But that alone, why is actually here it's not important to meet the exact criterion over there if we don't understand that itself. Okay, let's say you have a limud, but the Rebbe is going to say, but we still need to understand why. But the Chalal, the Rebbe says it's mashma from the Rambam that it's not because of an extra limud, and just in this case that it's okay. In Gemara, of a noisef of them, but in addition to the issue was how gufa is Deutsch bitter. That alone, even according to, let's say there's an extra arve to tell, that still requires explanation. My time, what's the reason? Was by didrai minim in is Torah makpid, that by these three species, the lulav, esreg, and hodos, the Torah is particular as the prat anilkach bepoil, that the actual detail, that which you actually use in actual as a hobim di simonim, needs to have the signs that the Torah mentions about them. By arve nochel is genug, and by arve nochel is sufficient. Eibes is from the min bechlal. Over there is just that it's the general kind. So that, why is that? But on top of that, is nitmuvim is not understood because from Noshon Harambam, from the language of the Rambam, Leuten Pirush from Rev Hameforshim, as most commentaries understand the Rambam, Vashulchan Aruch, and the Shulchan Aruch is mashma. It appears as men darf nit habun aribu miyuchad, that we don't need an extra learning to include, especially to marbezain an arove, to include a willow was is gewachsen b'midbarei bahorim, that grew in the desert or on the mountains. We don't need a pasuk for that. Nor men veis es from mashmos hakosov. We know this. We understand the pasuk. The Torah ruft say mit nomen arve nochel. They're just referred to as willows of the stream, not that they need to be. Valrev means because most of this type, the willow, they grew on the streams. But also so when the Torah was talking about here willows, it was talking about the generally they grow on the streams, but also an arava was benemt from the miut, but also a willow that you take from the minority was wachsen the midbar baharim is kosher. Those who grow in the desert or in the mountains is still kosher. So it's something which we know from the pasuk itself, not because we have an extra plural arve. The Rebbe says the Mefarshim actually add that the plural is used for something else. It's used that we need two. Mefarshim that Moses as man can go need zog, and that you can't at all say as Leut Rambam werde din abgelernt von dem Ribu Arve, that according to the Rambam we learned this halacha because there's a plural Arve, weil dem Ribu darf man oif zu ablernen. We need arve to tell you that you need two aravis, not that another kind of an arave is kosher. So the Rambam, we can't say that is why it says arve. We know others. So kumtois l'shitas harambam. So it turns out that according to the view of the Rambam, as beim zogen dem loshen arve nochal, when the Torah says you need to use willows of the stream, read the Torah melachatchila to begin with. The Torah is talking about Norvegen dem Shem Amin Bechlal. We're talking about the name of this species, that this is a willow which grows usually on the stream. But he's not talking about that the willow that you fulfill the mitzvah of needs to have been grown at a stream. Is nicht verstandig, so it's not understood. Minolon, how do we know this to make this distinction, and specifically by Arova? Umay timer lechalig bisimone haTorah. What's the reason to make this difference in the signs that the Torah assigns for the different species of the daled minim on the forest kinds? And we make a difference between the erste drei and the Aroves, between the first three species. And with Aroves, but the other three species, they have to be precise. the kind that you actually take meets the specific criteria from the Torah. The arove does not need to meet the specific kind arve nochal, but just the general species of arove, of the willow, which the majority grow, is fine to take for the actual mitzvah and arove that grows on the mountain, and it is not arve nochal. Why is that in such a way? Nois Gimel, the Rebbe comes up with an interesting approach that certain things cannot be answered in Nigla and need the inner part of Torah to give insight. The Rebbe is going to answer the question about the different approach to the mitzvah of the Arava, that over there the general kind is needed, but not the specific what you do the mitzvah with, as it's understood from the way it's in the Pnimis Inyonim, what the Arava resemble versus the other species. Gimel. Ma'ochin kama pamim, we've already spoken many times, as Zayin Faran kama Inyonim in Torah. There are many ideas in Torah, was in derech hapshat v'al derech hanigla zayin ze nidglatik. When you learn it in the style of simple meaning and in the revealed part of Torah, they are not understood, they're not smooth. Und sie werden verständlich legamri, and they become totally understood. Nor v'davke leuten derech hadrash haremes v'asoid, only and specifically in the style of the expounding, the hint, and the secret. Ubefrat al pibiyur abiyur in pnimis Torah, and especially according to the explanation in the inner part of Torah. Ubeloshen Rashi ubehat goshe, and to use Rashi's language and the emphasis, Rashi says ein hamikra hazeh oimer elo darsheni. Rashi sometimes says, even though Rashi learns the pshat, he says, but this pasuk says, no, you have to expand me. There's a certain area in Torah where Torah itself says that you need to expand it in Torah. You can't understand it as it is, but you need to come on to the way these things is understood in Pnimis HaTorah. So, similar is in our case. The chiluk hanal between the daled minim, this above distinction between these four species, 3 and 1, is verstanding bepashtus. It's simply understood leuten bir in the daled minim al derech hadrash, that according to the way these four species are explained in the style of drash, of expounding the Torah. State in Medrash. It states in the Medrash as the daled minim seinen aremes ev die vier sugim von Yidden, that the four species are a hint on the four categories of Yidden. An esreg was yesh by tam yesh by reach. An esreg which has taste and it also has a smell is meramis of Eden was yesh behem Torah v'yesh behem maisim tovim. That hints to Jews that have both Torah and good deeds. So that's the esrog. The esrog has both a good smell and a good taste, and meaning there's Torah maisim tovim. Kapes tamorim, when we talk about the lulav, from the palm tree, was hatomor a date yesh beitam ve'im beireach. A date has a taste, but there is no smell to it. So the kapes tamorim, the lulav, they hint zayin aremes. If the Yidden v'yesh b'hem Torah, those are the Yidden that have Torah, but ve'em b'hem maisim tovim, but there is no maisim tovim, no good deeds, there is no smell, there's only a good taste, only Torah. That's the lulav. And the hodos yesh beireach ve'em beitam. The hodos has a smell, but it has no taste. Is meramis of Eden, that hints for Jews was yesh b'hem maisim tovim ve'em b'hem Torah. They have good deeds, but they don't have Torah. They're like the hodas have a good smell, but they don't have taste. Un arova. Then you have the final one is the arova, the willow was ein batam ve'ein bareach. There's no smell, there's no taste, and there's no smell. Is aremes, that hints of bnei odom, of those people shayim b'hem loy Torah v'loy maisim tovim. They don't have not Torah, not good deeds. So what is the idea of lulav to take all these four species? On the mitzvah for netilas dalid minim is in yono. So what is the idea behind taking the mitzvah of taking the 4 species, Yukshuru kulam aguda echad. They should all be tied in one group. Alle 4 sugim fun Eden, all 4 types, categories of Yidden, werden verbunden bei aguda achas, become tied in one bundle, in one grouping. Kumtuis. So it turns out, as es ist da achiluk ikri zwischen die erste 3 minim mit der arova, that there is a basic difference between the first 3 species with the willow. The erste 3 minim, the first 3 species, sugim in Eden, categories in Eden, seinen gleich ze lo ze. They are equal one to another. Ubemele is euch zeir is agdes. Therefore, also their unity mitzadem bazei alle farmogun mailes giluyas. That is because they all have some revealed advantages. You can see there is greatness. Each one has something to revealed about them. You can actually see something that they have unique, special. Kipiskam hayedua. As the expression that is known, say a ganev is nit der was ken ganvenen. A thief is not someone who knows how to steal, but there was ganvet, the one who actually steals. And unalamden, a scholar is nit der was can learn. It's not somebody who knows how to learn, or there was learn bepoil, but actually studies. Well, achas kama v'kama as the maila for maisim tovim, for sure, the advantage of good deeds is ketoichnan haposhut, is as the very simple meaning. Good deeds means shaykh dafkevem and tut umehot maisim tovim bepoil. It's when you do and you actually have good deeds. So everything is has their advantage. What they have, whether it's maisim tovim, whether it's Torah or both, they have. However, but the exception is mashenkin darov, as opposed to the willow. Eden was Abraham loy Torah v'lo maisim tovim. They don't have neither Torah, not maisim tovim. Und dies achdus mitzay. So why do we get together with them? Is because of their inside, who they are, their essence, their Yiddishkeit. Mitzay der farvos is ein Yidden. They're Yidden. Was das is a maile pnimis v'atzmis. That's an inner advantage and an essence advantage. Was is faran by Yedin einem was is mizera Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov, which is by each one who is of the seed of Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov. Euch wenn bepoil is ein behem lo Torah v'lo maisim tovim. Also, if in actually they don't have Torah maisim tovim bepoil, but they have the potential, they have it inside them. Even if you have a child who's been in captivity amongst the nations from when he was a baby and he never knew he was Jewish, he doesn't know that he is Jewish. So if he doesn't have any Torah maisim tovim bepoil, but yet he still has the essence advantage that he's part of the Jewish people. Und der Fahr wird nicht also der Halacha bepoil. So from this, it evolves the actual Halacha. In actuality, the Simone had Torah from the erste 3 minim, that it signs that the Torah gives from the first 3 species, that needs to be openly by Dimi, Velchem is Mekayim, the mitzvah bepoil. But those that you actually fulfill the mitzvah, you need to have those Simonim openly, because the first 3 represent people that actually have that simon. Ashenkin by Arova, but when it comes to Arova, is afilu oiv de protis dike Arova. You talk about Arova, even if that particular specific willow is nit gewachsen by Nochel, it did not grow by the stream. It is atinuk shenishba lebein ha'akum. He is a child who has been in captivity amongst the nation. He didn't get that opportunity. Oiv norer is from the min arve Nochel. As long he is from the species of the willows of the stream, stammt von Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov. He comes from Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov, is as an arovik she'er l'kaima mitzvah, that becomes a kosher willow to fulfill the mitzvah. Und durch them, and through that, yuksheru mitir von the andere gimel also be tied with her, the other three species, werden sie atel von, they become part of them, and is mekayim mitzvahs dal minim. That's the way that we fulfill the mitzvah of the four species, by having all these grouped together. Ulahoyir, point out, as davke zeir nomen velcher, it's specifically that name which we call them in Loshen Kodesh Arova, is Arova, is the Zelba Oisius from Va'orval Hashem Milchus Yehuda V'goymer, that it will be sweet to Hashem, the gift of Yehuda, etc. So you see the word Arova, the sweetness, Davke comes from the Arova, which seems to be the lowest of all the species. But that is represented by the fact that they are part of Klal Yisrael. So even if this specific Arava did not get the opportunity, he was Nishba Ben Akum, he still qualifies because he's a Yid, and we tied him together with the other species. From this, we also have the very clear lesson. Zum allem ersten darf man wissen, first and foremost, we need to know, as men muss sich verbinden mit jedem Jiden. We must tie ourselves with every Jew. Afilu mit anoshim pshutim, even with very simple Jews, very simple people. Because in order to fulfill the mitzvah of taking the four species, muss man haben alle vier minim. You must have all four species. Kishem, wie man kann nicht jötze sein the mitzvah. On an esrog, just like you cannot fulfill the mitzvah without having the esrog, or the lulav, or the ahodos, or the myrtle. Azoy kemenit mekayim and the mitzvah. You cannot also likewise fulfill the mitzvah on arovis, without arovis. Anoshim shutim, simple people. You cannot do the mitzvah. You need, just like you need the other species, you need the arova. Adrabah. And on the contrary, v'bal das di pshitus von anoshim shutim davke. Since the simplicity of these simple people specifically is verbunden mit pshitus ha'atzmut, with the simplicity of the essence of Hashem, kommt euch, so it turns out, as davke durch dem was men verbindt sich mit anoshim pshutim, specifically through this that we tie ourselves with simple people, verbindt man sich mit pshitus ha'atzmut. That's the way we tie ourselves to the pshitus ha'atzmut, to the essence, the simplicity of the atzmut, which is higher than anything. The tzumkum de'era. And here we get the additional lesson. As is achilik ikri in den oifen, that there is a major difference in the way wie man verbindt sich mit der erste drei sugim von Eden, the way we connect, how you tie yourself to the first three categories of Jews, oder mit anis shposhut, or the way you connect yourself with a simple Jew. Those that have a connection to open greatnesses, to advantages, they need to actually have the Torah Maisim Tovim. In actuality, it's not sufficient that you come from a family of scholars, or the fact that you have signed up in a yeshiva, or that afila was mit availa frir gelern Torah, or even with that some time before he studied Torah, and muz hoben eats them tam. You need to have now the taste them limud Torah bepoil. You need to actually study Torah now. The same thing is by good deeds. You need it now. Can't do it on the past. But when you bring close to a simple Jew, you don't have to put any conditions. First, study Torah, observe good deeds. You don't have to make a condition as that you must first feel like you're a Jew. You don't even need that condition. That is Mizeri Yisrael, since he's from the seed of Israel, he's Jewish. First of all and foremost, you need to tie yourself with him. B'tzad Ahavas Yisrael, because of the love of another Yid. Der Farva said is a Yid just because he's Jewish. But Adrabe, Eiber feel does need, if he doesn't sense that, is the Rachmones Efem Gor Agroiser. So the pity on him is very, very big. And the Rachamim Rabim bringt Ave Rabbe, and bringt great love. Und das Oyevet Habrias, so it'll bring him to great love. The fact that it'll have pity will bring him to love him even greater. Und das Oyeves Habrias wird bringen ihm Karben LaTorah. And then the fact that you love the created being, that will bring to you to bringing them close to Torah. In the end of the day, he will bring close to Torah and elevate the created beings to Torah. Bis sie wollen sein in der Darge von Yesh Beitam v'Yesh Bereich, until they'll become at the level that they have taste and they have smell. Hey. Der Biur, this explanation is Loy Der Dei Hanal Sif Aleph, is according to the opinion that we brought down in Sif Aleph, as Kapis Tumorim is at Naili Kuva and Lulav, that the Kapis Tumorim, that it has to be of the dates, is a condition that would prevent in the fulfillment of the mitzvah of Lulav. If it didn't meet that criteria, he didn't fulfill. As es mus kumen von a dekel shoyse Tumorim, it has to come from a palm tree that produces the dates. As Zainen aber Farandeis, there's other opinions. As euch Kapis Tmorim is blois der Shem Hamin Bechlal, that also Kapis Tmorim is just merely the name of the species, Punkt vi Arve Nochal, just as we were saying by the willows of the stream. Und euch Hadekel Sheinois Tmorim is kosher lulov, and also a palm tree that does not produce dates, as we said before, from the Ragachover, but that he said no. But some Sefer says that will be kosher lulav as long as he's from that species. So we can say that explaining this different. So now we have a difference, not just between 3 against 1, but it's 2 against 2, which means esrog and hodos have to be precise, but lulav and Narava don't have to be precise according to these opinions. And what's the explanation? The Tilas Dalad minim is doch from the mitzvahs maisis. Taking the 4 species, that's an act, a mitzvah of a maisa. Und in ze gufa, achinailis v'yoser. It's a very elevated, a great mitzvah, taking the 4 species, because that needs to accomplish the wholesome and unity of all categories of Yidden, as with the Achdus for the 4 Oisius and Shem HaMiyuchad, as the unity of the 4 letters of the special name Shem Havaya Yud Kei Vav Kei, to bring them together. Und das sagt man, and here we say as is ma'akiv, v'azoi ken werden die Metzias von der Mitzvah Maisis. How that it holds back, and we need to, how you can do the act of this practical mitzvah. Wenn es tun in dem azoine, was ein bahem maisim tovim. When the ones that do this are the ones that do it that don't have maisim tovim. So since in order to be Mekayim, this mitzvah's maisis, you need also the lulav. The lulav represents Torah, the Tmorim, Torah, Tam, and Reich no maisim tovim. So how do you need to accomplish a mitzvah to be done to bring in the category that ain't b'maisim tovim? So, and that brings about the unity in them. Nit nor, as in they Not only do you also accomplish in those that don't have Maisim Tovim, the unity, to tie them together with the other species, do them kima mitzvah, ubeloshen hamedrash do gufa benitten dan, so they forgive, atone one from another. But more than that, these lulav, these people in Maisim Tovim, they're mitziruf in oifta mitzias hamitzvahs maisis. You bring them, you need to bring those who don't have Maisim Tovim to make up the mitzvahs maisis. But seemingly that should be interfering. How could you accomplish a mitzvah maisis with somebody who is not doing the mitzvahs maisis? Al derech mizot b'por aduma, as dar zayin nitali de arin. By por aduma we say it should not be through arin. You can't have the prosecution become the defense. So how could you have the lulav, which doesn't have Maisim Tovim, make up a mitzvah of Maisim Tovim, a great Maisim Tovim, the mitzvah of Asiyas of the four species? Muzman Zogan, as Beida, lulav arove, to an oif, mitzvahs ha-mitzvah durzeir etzem. They do it through their essence, not by the actual doing, but who they are. Because they're sons of Avram. Which is even stronger than Vert Nisgale, that this is when it's revealed durch dem Ziruv Lekicha zusammen mit Esrik V'Adasim, that when you combine it and you take it together, Esrik V'Adasim, V'Maisim, then actually he doesn't have Maisim, but by combining them together with the Ziruv, with the Esrik V'Adasim, that makes up the Maisim. Shows you how to accomplish it. Comes because of the essence of the lulav, and the essence which is even higher than the maisim. That's why you can accomplish it. Similar. At least this is some of it. Lulav, as it pertains to the lulav. Was afa pikein darfer haben Torah. He still needs Torah, while he doesn't have Maisim Tovim, but he still has to need Torah. Truma werd gegeben nor lekoyim. Truma you can only give the koyim, and that is bnei shel Aaron, is to give only son of Aaron. Ba'afa pikein zoktman as the dav hob mailas haTorah. He still needs the mailas haTorah. So you see, even though it's nothing to do really with Torah, it has to do with Aaron, it has to be a koyim, but yet you have to give it a Talmud Chochem. Is not doing the right thing. You have to give it to a Kohen Talmud Chochem. So while the emphasis is on the essence, on the lula, on the essence, but yet you still need it to be the level of Torah. And the Rebbe wants to reconcile. If we're talking about the essence, so why does it have to be a lulav? Why does it have to be yesh beitam? Why does it need Torah? The essence doesn't need anything, but the Rebbe says still, the similarity is that even though the Truma is giving the essence because he's a Kohen, but yet giving it to one who has also a lulav, also a Talmud Chacham. Vov, like them kum tarois noch an inyan. So here you get to another idea, as is do aggressor chidush in them tziruf halulav legabe them tziruf darov. There is a greater novelty that we're combining the lulav even more than combining the willows. To combine the lulav, which seemingly has Torah, but there's a greater chiddush to combine the Torah, the lulav, even more than the Rav has no Torah at all. Mishyesh bet Torah b'chaot nit kemaisim tovim. One who has Torah but you don't have good deeds is thus der nit hob maisim tovim. The fact that he doesn't have good deeds feel erger v'ba'an am ha'aretz. It's much worse than an ignorant person who doesn't have good deeds. An am ha'aretz weiß nicht besser. An am ha'aretz doesn't know any better. Mashenke the Talmud Chacham hod der Talmud. He does have the learning, the study, and yet is a nit mevil the ma'ase. It doesn't bring him to action. Derech Maimer Chazal, similar to the saying of our sages' blessed memory, as Talmidei Chachomim shegogin nases lahem kizdonis. The accidents of a scholar is considered like intentional because he should know better. Was von dem hat man noch a Heroa. From here you have another lesson. As der Chiv verbinden sich mit jeden Iden. The obligation to tie yourself with every Jew. Yukshuru kulam agud echos. To all be tied in one bundle. Is nit nor mit di was bis negei zeis es pekuach nefesh beruchnis. It's not just with those who it's life-saving spiritually mamish. Amehor es v'tinuk shenish b'beina akum, whether they're ignorant people or child that was captured among the non-Jews. Came on nicht versucht dem Tam von Yiddishkeit, those who never tasted Yiddishkeit. But I feel einer was weiß ja, but even one who does know. Und von deswegen ist nicht mekayim, still he doesn't observe. Darf man sich abgeben und sich verbinden mit him. We have to give them attention and tie with him. Yukshuru kulam agudechus, got to tie all together. Und noch mehr, and even more, men muzim hobun lasis mitzias mitzvah l'kaima. You need him too, in order to make up the existence of a mitzvah, the four species, and to fulfill it, you need him too. Und durch them, was alles sugi Eden werden nisachet zusammen. By all categories of Eden become united. Wird eugetan with a medrash firt ois, then you accomplish, as the medrash concludes, they atone one for the other. Koilod and taichin kapora, also including the word kapora, not only atonement, but lechaper lefonai liyis nachas ruach lekoine, to be mechaper before me, to become a pleasantness of spirit to Hashem. Bizas they're spoiled to the extent this impacts of an ilu of l'maylu kavayachol. This sort of makes an impact that Hashem is elevated. Omar HaKadosh Baruch Ani Mis'ala. Hashem says, I'm elevated. Does bring that up the Geula Hamitis Vashlema. This brings the true and complete redemption. Then Yisrael Negolin Achiyu Kulam Agud Echos. The Yidden are not redeemed till they become into one group. This is Mesichas Beis HaShe'eva Tavshin Yud Beis.